A gruesome monument to India's worst rail disaster this century. Mangled carriages are all that remain of 3 trains carrying thousands of passengers. After a devastating collision and derailment in the eastern state of Odisha on Friday night, hundreds are dead. The sequence of events remains unclear, but it appears that the Coromandel Express collided with a freight train, which in turn derailed an express train going in the opposite direction.
10 to 15 people fell on me when the accident happened and everything went haywire. I was at the bottom of the pile.
I woke up and heard a loud bang and the train was derailed. I grabbed onto the fan as hard as I could, but I fell.
A major rescue operation took place overnight, with local residents rushing to help. Dozens of bodies are laid out, covered in sheets.
At around 9 p.m. we heard that the train to Chennai in which my son was travelling on had derailed. So we started calling everyone and asking about him. We found out at 5 a.m. in the morning that he had died.
Over 200 ambulances and 100 doctors were mobilised, with survivors ferried to already overcrowded nearby hospitals. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has visited the scene this afternoon after the government declared today a day of mourning.
This incident is very serious for the government. Orders for carrying out a thorough investigation have been given, and whoever is found guilty will get the strictest punishment. That person will not be spared.
India has one of the largest and busiest rail networks in the world, used by 13 million people daily. But modern trains run on ageing infrastructure. An anti-collision system wasn't installed on the route where Friday's tragedy occurred. With so little clarity about the cause of the crash, school children and teachers turned to prayer. Well, joining me now is Derek O'Brien, an opposition leader in the Indian Parliament and a staunch critic of Narendra Modi's government. Derek O'Brien, your party has called for the resignation of the Railways Minister. Just explain why you blame him for this.
Well, it's a combination of the Railway Minister who reports to the Prime Minister. A week ago, on May the 25th, the Prime Minister made a political speech in which he said nothing ever happened in the Indian Railways till he came along in 2014. This accident was an accident waiting to happen because this government is more interested in the last 9 years in PR, that is public relations, as opposed to PS, which is passenger safety.
Well,
it's really unfortunate.
Let me just ask, because the Indian government has allocated billions to new lines to try and reduce congestion. They've got these new bullet trains and so on. Investment in the railways is being made by this government, isn't it?
In fact, the question which the Indian government has to answer, what proportional increase in budget has gone towards infrastructure? Let's say from infrastructure, if it's gone from X to 5X, what proportion has it gone up for safety? That's the question which the Indian government needs to answer.
So you accept that investment has been made, but it's been allocated in the wrong way. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, in the terminology, they call it sequencing. We have warned this government on the floor of Parliament from 2016 that to look into these issues. From 2017, they have done away with the railway budget. That is absurd. They're spending 10 times more on a bullet train. Nobody says we don't have a bullet train, but when the bullet train costs 10x and your railway safety budget is 1x, that's the problem.
Right.
And the worst part about it is that the Prime Minister has been going to inaugurations to inaugurate new railway lines and new trains. And this is a disaster. And this is not a disaster which has suddenly happened. In the last 4 or 5 years, there have been smaller disasters. And that is why today as we mourn the dead, as we pray for the quick recovery of those injured, we're very, very angry. Because this ought not to have happened. And the Prime Minister, I just saw the clip which you just showed, saying those who are responsible should be punished. Well, he should look into the mirror tonight.
Right. So in that case, he said that rail modernisation only happened in earnest when he came to power. Does he have a point that predecessors neglected the rail system? I accept your point that he also hasn't done enough, but is this years and years in the making?
You see, the problem here in India is not the rail accident has been a disaster. If you look back economically, demonetization was announced overnight. That's been a disaster. This is the same prime minister who shut down India's railway network during demonetization and put millions of people at risk. And these Indian railways, they have a great tradition. They're not perfect, but the arrogance and the government's hubris of not looking into the mirror, because when you have hubris, you don't look into the mirror. And I think that's why people, besides the opposition, you're asking an opposition a member of parliament, that's fine. People in India are angry. They're angry with the way parliament was. We've shut down the old parliament building and made it into a museum. Could the United Kingdom ever do something like that with Westminster? By the way, the population of Sri Lanka, the entire population of Sri Lanka is the number which is equal to the number of people who travel on the Indian railways every day. So the government has some tough questions to answer. We still haven't yet started because we believe the focus has to be on rescue and relief, but start.